Welcome to the Craft of Coaching podcast, where we dive into what it truly takes to become a skilled, confident life coach. I'm your host, Kate, head of the CLCC, or Certified Life Coach Collective, an ICF-Accredited Level 1 coach training program. We combine courage, coaching, and community to offer you more than just a training program, but a life-changing experience where you use your own personal transformation as the learning ground for supporting your clients. On this podcast, we explore how you can use coaching skills to support your clients or expand your own growth, all grounded in evidence-based coaching practices. Learn more about our program and get free resources for becoming a life coach at teamclcc.com. And now, here's today's episode. Welcome to a new season of the Craft of Coaching podcast. I am always excited when it's time for a fresh new season, and I always think in advance of the topics that I'd like to bring to the Craft of Coaching podcast. Sometimes those topics are listener suggested. So if you ever have a topic that, you peruse through all the episodes and you think to yourself, Kate hasn't covered this, I would love to hear it. Note, though, that with the topics that are suggested, we do not have guests on the podcast, with the exception of people that we have worked with before, myself or someone on my team. So we don't take cold pitches for guests. And then the other thing to keep in mind is that I really want to keep this podcast focused on literally the craft of coaching or what it is like behind the scenes to be a life coach. I don't want to go in the topic of marketing. There are a gazillion podcasts that are out there already about marketing. And I saw a real hole, I guess you could say, in the podcast industry around what is it that coaches are doing with clients? What is the professional journey, the personal journey of being a coach? So that's why the Craft of Coaching is oriented this way. But if you would ever like to suggest a topic that we have not covered before, head on over to email support@yourcourageouslife.com, and our team will certainly review what you're suggesting, and it could appear as a future episode of the Craft of Coaching podcast. So let's get into today's topic, which is clarifying your coaching philosophy. Kind of a odd topic. It's more on the what is it like to be a professional coach. And this topic is one that I see as an evolving topic. It is not one that you are probably going to have nailed down as soon as you come out of coaching school or coach training. It is one that I know some graduates of the Courageous Living Coach certification, which is the program of which I am the director of training, have said, beyond what tools CLCC has given me, I feel like I want some cohesive sense of who I am as a coach, what I'm doing as a coach, what's my take on coaching, how do I figure out what that is? In our program, we really look at coach training as a toolbox. If you're building a house, you don't just use one tool, and you don't use one tool at all times and under all circumstances. So in our program, we see it as we give you a toolbox with a lot of different tools, and then you as a coach are learning through our program which of those tools are the ones that you resonate with and want to use most with your clients, and you're finding your own way of using those tools. I don't have an interest in creating a bunch of Kate bots in the coaching industry. I'm not giving anyone a model. I'm not giving anyone a 1, 2, 3 step plan. I'm not giving, there's not even a booklet in our program of here's how you do every exercise. There is a booklet of all the exercises that we teach in our program. We give that booklet out at the end of our training program intentionally. And why? Because while our trainees are practicing all of the different coaching interventions that we teach in our program, we want them to be relying on their intuition. We want them to be crafting those exercises in the ways they want to. We want them to not rely on a script. If we give everybody a script that says, here's how you do this exercise, and it's like all laid out, and here's what you say, and here's how you say it, then the coaching effectively is a performance more than it is something that's alive. And the coaching will be more attuned to the exercise that's written out than to the client that you are on a call with. And that can be a little bit nerve-wracking, and we're aware of that. It can be a little tense to watch a couple demos of an exercise, try it out in a few role plays on a lesson call, and then step into one-on-one work with one of your own clients and try it out yourself without this script in front of you. Well, the script that's in front of you is going to take away someone's ability to really experience the exercise itself. It's not about, air quotes, doing it right. It's about being present with your client. Same thing, I believe, with clarifying your coaching philosophy. So you are not going to get from today's episode a handy little checklist so that you can know that you've got your coaching philosophy dialed down. Instead, I'm going to ask you some inquiry questions that I hope you will take with you, try out, and then see how it evolves over time. My coaching philosophy when I first started is different than the coaching philosophy that I have today. And that's because it's evolved. I've learned more. I'm devoted to the skill set. Things that I once believed to be true, I no longer personally believe to be true. For instance, when I first started, I was much more into accountability as a marker of progress. And now I see accountability as important related to a way of being, which is being in integrity. So it's less for me now about a client showing up and being accountable because they have to do what they said they do to tick this item off the list to make forward progress on what they said they wanted from coaching. Now I find it to be a much richer conversation to look at how a client stepped away from their desired way of being when they were not accountable to themselves, and what that's really about, and even what the resistance that that client is clearly experiencing, if they aren't accountable, might be telling them about another unmet need in their life. Sometimes resistance, actually I'm going to backtrack and I'm going to say 99.9% of the time, the resistance has a purpose. And it's something other than just I'm afraid. There's something that's being protected. So that's just one example of how my coaching philosophy has shifted. So if you want to grab a pen, paper, or something to take some notes for the questions that I'm going to pose. Of course, don't do that if you're driving or otherwise occupied. Be safe, all that good stuff. But let's start with the first question. Your coaching philosophy is going to be comprised of 3 parts at its most elemental level. 1, what you see as the major roadblock for the client. 2, what you see as the desired solution, generally speaking. And 3, the method to get there. And whenever the trainees in the Courageous Living Coach certification express a worry, how am I any different than any other coach that's out there? These are 3 areas that we direct them to. So let's start with what you see as the major roadblock, the problem. How do you define the major problem that clients face? How do you define the major roadblock that clients face? With this question, you're answering it generally speaking. Of course, every client is different, and of course, everyone's unique circumstances vary a little bit. But there is probably one major thread that tends to run through the majority of the people that you're speaking with. So what is that thread? What is the general problem that your people are encountering? For instance, a relationship coach, and multiple relationship coaches could define this in different ways, and I'll give some examples. A relationship coach might say the major breakdown in connection between clients is that they lack communication skills. Another relationship coach might say the major reason connection breaks down between clients is because there's unhealed inner kid work. And yet another relationship coach might say Everybody spends way too much time talking about their problems in a relationship when really what people need to do is reconnect with their sexual selves. And if people were having more sex, it would open up the floodgates of connection. If you think about it, you have probably seen all three of those different theories put out there by different relationship experts. If someone is a wealth and abundance coach, one wealth and abundance coach might say, the reason that you have issues with wealth and abundance is because of your mindset. Another wealth and abundance coach might say it's because imbalanced chakras. I have a friend who actually has that theory. She's brilliant. She's helped a lot of people. Lisa Peterson, Leisa Peterson, author of The Mindful Millionaire. She and her approach with looking at balancing the chakras that's not the only thing she does. But I think it's one of the most interesting things that she's done in her work. And then you get other coaches who say that if your money is not aligned with your values, that's the problem. So ask yourself, what is it that you see as the major issue, the major through line, the major roadblock for most clients? What do you see as being at the root? And what is at the root is not the symptom of it. The symptom of it in a relationship is fighting. The symptom of it, if you have money issues, is you don't have money to pay your bills. What's at the root? So if you need to, you could pause this, take some time, journal about it. If you get stuck around what to write or you're feeling like there's a block, I often suggest for people, I used to be a classroom college professor, and when we would do a journaling exercise or a free writing exercise, I would say, finish this sentence as many times as it takes until you get to the truth. What I really want to say is, what I really want to say is, what I really want to say is, what I really want to, finish that as many times as it takes to get to the truth. All right. I'm going to assume that you have now paused this recording, done whatever you need to do to get a little more clear on what you see as the major roadblock for your clients. Now let's get into what you see as the major desired solution. Usually the solution is just the opposite of what you've identified as the problem. If you're a relationship coach and your major philosophy is that the problem for people who feel stuck in relationship is that they don't have enough sex, they talk too much about their problems, and they don't have enough sex, then you're probably going to say that the solution would be, let's talk a little less, let's get connected to our sexual selves. If you have identified that the major roadblock for most of your clients around money is that they aren't connected to their values, a solution is probably going to be that people are feeling connected to their values and using their values to make all their financial decisions. So what I would suggest to you now is to, again, pause this recording, think about it, write something down. What do you see as the thing that is the desired solution, the thing that people need? I'm not talking yet about the things they need to do to get to the desired solution. I'm just talking about the things people are wanting. And I'm going to go ahead and flesh out a little bit more of an example here because I think that people learn best when they are getting examples. I'm a big examples person as a facilitator. So for instance, in my own business, I see the major roadblock for most clients living a great life is that they are stuck in patterns of fear. I see the desired solution being living from a place of their most courageous self, not getting stuck in fear. I'm not talking about the how just yet. I'm talking about the problem, and I'm talking about the desired solution. Now, a word about both of these. I have run into a lot of coaches who get really stressed about this. They think they have to dress up the language. They think they have to make it really flowery and poetic. They get stuck thinking, well, all of my clients are so different because like some people, it's not exactly that they're stuck in their fear. They already do a lot of courageous things. It's like, well, then potentially that client is an outlier, or maybe you haven't yet hit on the through line that is true for the majority of your clients. What you're aiming for in expressing your coaching philosophy is what is generally true for the majority of the clients that you work with. And yes, you might run into some clients who don't have those specific things. And the other thing that I see people stress about is feeling like they have to cram every possible scenario in so they don't potentially lose a client. I hear this a lot with niching. People who say, well, I really want to work with business owners about overwhelm, but I don't want moms to think that they can't approach me if they need help with overwhelm, even if they don't own a business. And my response to that is always, trust me, if someone wants to work with you and they don't care, they won't care that your branding is about helping overwhelmed business owners. Yes, if you want to work with moms, make it clear that you will. But if actually who you want to work with is business owners and you're cool with someone who's a stay-at-home mom deciding to work with you, they'll reach out to you. They'll find you. It's all good. If a client wants to work with you badly enough, they reach out to you and they say, can I work with you? So you don't have to worry about your messaging on your coaching philosophy being perfect for all clients under all circumstances. You're just going for 75, 80% of the time. Would I say it's true that most of my clients are struggling with X and most of my clients are wishing that their lives were Y? That's it. So go ahead and take some time to pause this recording if you need to and think about what the majority of your clients see as the desired solution, the thing they want, the place they want to end up, the way of being that they want to inhabit. All right, I'm going to assume you took some time to think about those first two things, and now let's talk about the third piece, which is the method by which someone gets to the solution. And again, remember that if you have been worried, well, there are a lot of coaches out there that do relationship coaching. How am I different? Well, this process of clarifying your coaching philosophy is how you start to see the way in which you're different. And there's one other little flavor we'll add to this at the very end, but these three pieces are the most important. So make sure you listen all the way to the end because that one little flavor is the piece that is another differentiator. But okay, here we go. Third piece, how does the client get there? Does the client get there by your 1, 2, 3 step process that you've developed? Does the client get there through meditation and presence-based practices? Does the client get there by uncovering shame? Shame resilience, work of Brené Brown. Those are just a few examples. So for me, problem, clients are stuck in fear. Desired solution, they want to live with courage. They want to live from the place of their most courageous selves. How do they get there? Well, I think one of the hugest ways people get from A to B here is through habit formation. And that's why I have a book. I published a book through a traditional publisher called The Courage Habit, and it is all about that. It is my coaching philosophy that this is a central place to start if you want to live a more courageous life. You cannot just will yourself into living with more courage. Somebody else might say that that's true. Somebody else, another coach might say, the how is grit and willpower. You just got to will yourself to be more courageous. That is okay. I'm not poo-pooing on that approach to helping people to live with more courage. It's just a different approach than the one I take, which is about these 4 specific habits that I think people need to develop. And they can develop one of them or all of them. And I outline those in the Courage Habit. And there are others who would say that the path to getting into your most courageous self, so going from stuck in fear to living with courage, is through meditation and presence-based practices. This is a huge aspect of Buddhist philosophy, where you face the fear with meditation and presence-based practices. I've seen plenty of that. Other people might say, I've given this example already, but I'll give it again to fill it in, that the process of going from fear to courage is all about uncovering shame and shame resilience strategies. These are not bad in any way. I love the work of Brené Brown, who really emphasizes shame, uncovering shame, and shame resilience strategies. I fully support her work. My personal coaching philosophy doesn't discount someone else's work. It just centers my own work in a certain way. And that is what I'm inviting you to do. It's not that you can't share the same coaching philosophy as another coach. And it's not that your coaching philosophy has to trump all the other coaching philosophies that exist and somehow be better. I look at the world, and I invite you to share this with me too, as, we're all just fumbling around in being human. And we are all pieces of the puzzle, and life is a constellation of data points. I have a wonderful friend who I admire so much, Laura Heacock, and she is an executive coach. And she helps leaders within organizations. And the way she defined it, I loved it. She said, I love helping those leaders who started a business and then woke up one day and kind of said, oh, ho, whoa, I have a company. And I loved that because I went, oh, that feels like me. And then the problem that they're facing is they don't necessarily know how to run all the different aspects of the company in terms of people, leadership, etc. I have a lot of ideas about that, but when it came to, for example, I got some help from Laura on this, giving a contractor constructive feedback when they made a mistake, and my own personal stuff coming up of, I don't want this person to think that I'm yelling at them or thinking they're awful, which is just a window into how I was critiqued when I was growing up, and I take that childhood stuff with me. Laura was helping me to sort out what it is that I see as the problem, which is I have a gap in how to manage and lead people, and the solution, which is I know what my protocol is when I need to give constructive feedback to a contractor. And what's in the middle? What's the how do we get there? Kindness. Laura's website is kindovermatter.com. And by the way, I interviewed Laura for the Craft of Coaching podcast, so you can listen to her brilliance. And that is her central philosophy. Now, there are plenty of other people who would take the exact same problem and the exact same solution, and their how you get there would be, there needs to be an HR manual, and there needs to be a code of accountability and metrics and tracking to make sure that we are all staying accountable to this HR code that's out there. And you've probably worked for those companies. And I know Brene Brown does executive coaching and leadership with her team. Dare to Lead is all about that. And I think a lot of her work is about shame resilience and uncovering that and bringing vulnerability into the workplace. So the how of it, combined with how you define the problem and the solution, becomes the thing that uniquely makes you different from other coaches. And like I said, there's one more little bonus pop that I'm going to put in here. That is another differentiator. But the three you really have to know for yourself if you want to feel like, here's who I am as a coach, here's what my coaching is about, would be, how do you identify what the problem is that people face? By the way, plenty of other people would say courage is not the fundamental place where we should be focusing our time and attention when clients are stuck in their lives. It's something else. And I'm okay with that. And I think there are certainly clients who would go, yeah, this courage thing that Kate does, it's not for me. It's not what I'm after. So you got to know how you define the problem, how you define the solution, and then for you, what is the primary method by which you get there? And again, I just really want to make sure I hit this point home. Because you define these things, it does not mean that you discount other things or that you're somehow saying that these things you've defined are better than the other things. When I talk about going from being stuck in those fear-based patterns to living from your most courageous self in my book, The Courage Habit, I talk about 4 specific habits people can cultivate. It is okay with me if somebody else is like, yeah, I went from being stuck in my fear to living with more courage through the work of Byron Katie. And her 4 questions and inquiry, that did it for me. That was so effective. Okay, great. That's all right. That's Byron Katie's coaching philosophy. I don't know if she'd identify as a coach, but hopefully you're getting my point that you defining your coaching philosophy doesn't mean that you're saying you're better. It doesn't mean that you can't work with anyone in a slightly different way if you want to. It doesn't mean that you are saying that you can't integrate other approaches into your work. And your coaching philosophy might change, as I highlighted earlier. Okay, as promised, now I'm going to get to the final differentiator. And I will define it or put a label on it as your attitude. There are certainly some coaches out there who say, I help people who get stuck in fear move into courage, and I think habit formation is important. But the question is, what's the attitude that they bring to it? How I see myself and what has been reflected to me is that my attitude towards these things is a holistic approach, an experiential approach, which means some level of, I'll own it, moral relativism, that sometimes things that are okay under one set of conditions are really not moving you forward in your life under another set of conditions, that I am empathetic, but I'm also straight talking. I'm going to, as I quote the incredible Iyanla Vanzant, call a thing, boo. I'm going to call it what it is. And I love you, and I care, and I'm not saying it. I'm not being straight talking to try to put you down or shame you into taking some kind of action, but I'm going to call a thing. If the overwhelm is keeping you stuck and you need to start taking action, I'm the kind of coach who will say, I keep hearing you say that the overwhelm is keeping you stuck. And I really empathize with how that overwhelm feels. What do you want to do with it, though? Because spinning in it isn't helping you. Do you want to work on a specific unpacking of the overwhelm here? Do you want to come up with a plan for taking action to just confront that overwhelm head on? So I'm always very client-led in how I approach it, but that's probably how I'd talk to a client. Very straightforward. That's different than a coach who might be responding to someone's overwhelm by saying, and I'm going to try to intone this a little bit to get the point home, a little more of a, okay, let's slow down. Let's take a couple breaths. Would you put a hand over your heart and, something that's a little slower in pacing, a little less direct is what I was trying to role play. And that's different than another coach who might have a different attitude of, look, suck it up, buttercup. Overwhelm is how life goes. You're holding yourself back. You need to stop it. This is not in alignment with your highest self. For somebody else, either of those other two coaching approaches is gold, and my coaching approach would be annoying. Again, this is okay. You are not going to be fulfilled working with a client who is spending every session with you feeling like, that's like, what are we even doing together? And so stressing about, oh gosh, what if I can't find a client? I need to be different so I can find a client. No. You don't need to be different to find clients. This is the most incredible thing about the world we live in, that we're all different and we are all this constellation in this fumbling human experience, and what works for one person doesn't work for someone else. And it's okay. And there have been different times in my life when I have approached or wanted a different sort of a thing from my own coaches. I have worked with Coach Matthew Marzell, who I would say is very direct and very like, how's that working for you? I would bring something to him, and I used to joke with him and be like, this is one of those moments when I really want to throw a book at you, because, I'd bring something in that I'd brought 20 times and I'd say how I responded, and he'd go, have you been using your tools? And I'm sitting here like, well, I could have, but I wasn't motivated. And he's like, how's that working for you? And then now I work with Coach Leanne Raymond. By the way, I still have spot sessions here and there with Matthew Marzell. And now I work with Coach Leanne Raymond, and her approach, she'll just weave in metaphor and, just there's a lot of, I'm sitting here now just with this smile on my face because there's a lot more looking at who I want to be in the bigger picture of my life and integrating the divine feminine. And we have a regular conversation, I'd say, around Clarissa Pinkola Estes' Women Who Run with the Wolves. It's just, the hero's journey. Anytime I've brought up money as a potential thing that I needed to work on, she's always brought up relationship with money and the goddess Moneta, Moneta, and there's a real connection with nature. It's hard to describe her work in some ways, actually. So 2 very different coaching approaches, both of which have been beneficial in my life in huge ways. And I don't see, even though the 2 of them are very different, I don't see one as antithetical to the other. So I hope I've given you some food for thought. Here, if you would like to take it on as a coaching exercise, is your practice. Sit down and for the next 7 days in a row, at the same time each day, on a sheet of paper, write down what I really think of as the central problem for clients is, what I really think of as the central solution for clients is, how we get there is. And do it 7 days in a row. And maybe you will write the exact same thing every day for 7 days. I'm talking about like a little 5-minute thing, not an essay, but just like, I really see the central problem as my clients haven't healed their relationships with their mothers and they're carrying the mother wound. I really see the central solution as they need to heal the mother wound. And how we do that is by unpeeling all the different inner child selves that the client was at various points when their mother was really angry, harmful, etc. I'm just kind of riffing here, so that probably didn't sound great, but I hope you're getting the point. Just sit down, 5 minutes, jot it down, and you might write down the same thing every day for 7 days. If so, great. That means you're on to something. And if not, great. You're playing with a lot of different options. At the end of 7 days, look over what you wrote down and see if you find any cohesive threads or themes. All right, that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Before you go, would you help us out and take a moment to give us a rating in iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you're listening? It really helps us get the word out to other listeners. And before you go today, would you like free resources to support your coaching journey? Whether you're considering becoming a coach or you want advanced coach skills training, access our coaching resource library at teamclcc.com. Again, that's teamclcc.com. Can't wait to connect with you. And again, thanks for listening.